Ladies and gentlemen, please silence your phones and hush your babies. The show is about to start.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to a live stream that features today just me. My apologies to the Peter Bleakley fan club, who often frequent my videos purely for the purpose of seeing Peter Bleakley, but he's not with us tonight. So while you disappointedly click away, those of you that would like to stick around and hear more about the updates from the world of Mormon temple building, please do so. Just me on my own tonight. I'll be trying to get involved with as much of the comments as possible. I'll try to say too much, but we'll see how eloquent I'm feeling. So today we are talking about what's going on with the temple, particularly in Fairview and in Birmingham, England, both of which have had some pretty significant updates since last time we talked about them. And the question about Fairview really is it still too tall? For those that don't know, there have been some changes made to the proposed design by the church as a result of mediation and other sorts of behaviors, but we will get to that soon. Let's not get ahead of ourselves, shall we? First and foremost, it is important to remember when we're talking about the town of Fairview that they are preparing for a fight with the church. They have established a legal defense fund or a zoning defense fund. And it says, at the request of residents and others, the town of Fairview has established a zoning defense fund to allow those who wish to make a donation towards legal costs and related expenses incurred by the town and its attorneys as they defend the town's zoning ordinances. Visit the town's zoning defense fund page on fairviewtexas.org to learn more or make a voluntary donation. Please note donations are non-refundable. So the town is getting ready just in case one of the wealthiest religions in America, if not the world, decides that they want to try and bury this town, I guess, with cash. So, with cash that they use to fund their lawyers. And please bear in mind, actually, that the entire sort of surrounding of this, the entire framing, the entire milieu within which the discussion about the Fairview Temple sits, is that the church came in pretty hard, pretty quickly, threatening to sue the town if they didn't comply. That's important to remember because in spite of any mediation that may have gone on, in spite of anything kind of moving on where the church seems to have, quote, backed down, you've got to remember the position they started in, which was 172 feet and 8 inches tall at the spire, 65 feet tall walls to the roofline, both of which far exceeded the residential zoning ordinances for the town of Fairview. And rightly, the church asked for an exemption, but they came in with a sense of entitlement backed up by a threat of lawsuit that got some locals really sort of wound up and their backs feeling like they're against the wall. And traditionally, one does not mess with Texas. I certainly wouldn't. So these people have got a lot of fight in them, and I think they will push back. And so they're preparing themselves to push back should that be necessary. So they have prepared themselves legally for that. And then it was announced that they are heading to mediation. Now, you probably want to see my face as well, don't you? Oh, there we go. I like that. Okay, so it says, Dear Fairview residents, you won't be able to read this on screen, but I can, so I shall read it to you. The purpose of this letter is to share an update with you for the temple proposed by the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. As you know, in August, your town council unanimously denied a conditional use permit for construction of the temple, which would be totally out of place in that portion of our community. And then it goes on and goes on. And it talks about how they've been a welcoming home to the church, etc. But the key thing here is they've said, in a good faith effort to resolve this issue without litigation, the town has met with representatives of the church to see if we could work out an agreement that would take our citizens' valid concerns into account. We hope to negotiate with the LDS Church to either scale down the current plans to fit in the neighborhood or move the temple to a location in the portion of the town zoned for commercial use. To continue to show our good faith, town leaders have agreed to participate in non-binding mediation with church representatives. The mediation process involves an independent third party who will try and assist both sides with resolving the issue. Mediation is almost always required by the courts in an event of a lawsuit. So by participating in this process now, we're hopeful we can avoid litigation. The mayor, mayor pro tem, town manager, and town attorney will attend the mediation and subsequently relay any reasonable proposals to the council. Now, the thing to bear in mind here is that this is all about framing. This is all about narrative. So both sides, both the church and the town of Fairview, want to frame a narrative when they're talking about this publicly, right? It's not a bad thing. We all do it. We all do it in our daily lives. Please, tell me if you're one of the few people that never thinks about how something will come across when you tell people about it. But ultimately, we're all kind of telling stories to one another. That's how human beings generally sort of communicate, at least in my view. So this is the town of Fairview trying to lay out, particularly to its residents. This is the mayor trying to let them know that, look, we're trying to avoid litigation. That litigation that the church made very clear that they would engage in and that they would try and crush us. And, I heard personally with my own ears, members of the church say in the town council meeting, we'll just sue them. Right? So this is percolated down to some of the local members that they feel entitled just to sue the town if they don't get their way. The town desperately wants to avoid this because the church is incredibly wealthy, and this would be a long, protracted fight, and it's just going to create bad blood between neighbors. It's not good for anyone. So rightly, the town is trying to avoid that litigation. And it seems that by the church coming to mediation, hopefully that's them softening their stance and not, as the cynic might see it, just trying to actually strengthen their position so that when they eventually sue, they can say, well, look, we tried to compromise. And we'll be having discussions in the comments, I'm sure, about whether this is a sufficient compromise, whether this does achieve the objectives that the town is going for. And residents have their own views on that as well. I've been talking to some of them. So, yeah, the town is trying to put this narrative across that they are doing everything they can to avoid a lawsuit, but equally admitting that they are willing to go for it if necessary and trying to build up a fund to be able to do so. So that mediation took place, and I'm going to make this bigger. How do I make this bigger? Does this live stream, in the comments, this live stream needs to be polished? It's just me on my own, which means I can't really see the comments too much. I will try and make this as engaging as possible, but maybe I don't need to rush through it as quickly as I am doing. Can I stop and take my time? Let me know what you think. I'll read this one in full. Dear Fairview residents, the purpose of this letter is to share an update with you regarding the temple proposed by the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. As you know, the town has been engaged in a mediation process with the church concerning their plans for a temple in our community. I'm pleased to report that we have reached an initial compromise that can be put forward to the community. Let me stress that this proposal must still go through our normal zoning process with input from our citizens. Here's a point of stress that the church doesn't really make. The church makes the point. They do say, yeah, it'll have to still go through meetings, whatever. But as we'll see in a minute, the church talks with, I think, a lot more presumptive language about this. They talk with a lot more sort of, okay, the town council have agreed to it, so really this should happen now. And I think that's the narrative that they're gonna go with. So he says this memorandum of settlement calls for the church to decrease the temple's overall height by approximately 54 feet and to reduce the size of the building from 2 stories to 1. The newly proposed temple would be around 30,000 square feet. Now, when we were talking about this many moons ago, and it might be on this channel or it might be on Mormonish, we were talking about the fact that actually there are 40,000 square feet examples that would fit comfortably within zoning laws. So, for example, the 42-foot tall Paris temple, as I made that point to the town council when I was there in Texas, in fact, is still approximately 40,000 square feet. So the church could have had a 40,000 square foot temple within the current zoning laws, it would seem. It then says, most of the one-story building conforms with the town's current zoning regulations for the property, most of it, with a building height of 35 feet. And yes, true. Then there's a smaller raised section in the middle at the top of the building, which increases the height of that section to 45 feet. Okay. And I don't know why they've put this in, quotations, but tower on top reaches no more than 120 feet. Maybe do they think by not calling it a spire or a steeple anymore, they can kind of get away from that steeple doctrine issue, or the really bad sort of press around the idea of a steeple? Is the church decided they now want to call it a tower? I don't know. Let me know what you think. The church's original proposal called for constructing a 45,000 square foot temple, 65-foot tall, two-story building with the steeple and spire reaching almost 174 feet. Yeah, again, there's a difference in language there, isn't there? They've gone with tower on one of them and then steeple and spire on the other. That's interesting. On Monday, our town council agreed unanimously to approve the non-binding settlement agreement that would permit the church to submit a new proposal consistent with the settlement agreement, which would go before the Planning and Zoning Commission and would then return to the council for consideration. The council will hold a workshop session with residents to review the settlement agreement and hear comments. The workshop will be held in conjunction with the regular town council meeting on Tuesday, December the 3rd. That starts at 7:30 p.m. So that is in a couple of days. And I'm sure I'll hear back from residents as to how that went. We've got a great comment come in here. Just spotted this. Imogen is saying, I wonder if that's connected to the original argument of the clock tower in the town. I wonder if by calling it a tower, they're trying to connect it to Creekwood United Methodist Church and their desire for a bell tower rather than steeple or spire. Language is important, and they like to play little games with language when they can. So that's a good shout, Imogen. Thank you. The meeting will be live streamed for anyone who wants to watch the discussion. So I may watch that. I may stay up till 2 in the morning, perhaps 4 in the morning. We shall see. Probably not. But I'm sure that I will be able to watch it at some point. We appreciate the efforts of all those involved in working together in good faith to try and produce a compromise solution that will protect the town's character and zoning laws, while at the same time allowing the church to construct the temple at its chosen site. Okay, so it seems clear then, when in the original letter, which I didn't read through all of it, and maybe I should go back, but we'll see. They talked about a compromise with the church where they either reduce the size of the building or they move the site. Now, the church seemingly by this clearly didn't want to move the site. They clearly wanted to stick around where they were. And I understand that. They've bought the property. They don't want to go buying another property and selling it. I do understand them wanting to keep it in the site. So clearly they opted for the other part of the compromise. We look forward to upcoming meetings and hearing your thoughts on the resolution of this issue. Signed by Henry Lesner. And there he is. Okay. Now, here's what the church has been saying. Temples are sacred and holy places for Latter-day Saints and are considered to be the house of the Lord. We're grateful that town officials from Fairview were willing to discuss the concerns of the community with church representatives, and we were able to reach an agreement to move forward. It sounds really presumptive. They just talk about reaching an agreement to move forward. A new proposal is now in place that represents a mutually agreed compromise. Again, we both agreed on it. It's almost like saying you can't back out now. Whereas the mayor's language seemed just a lot more tentative. Richard Jones is saying, if the town is happy, then so am I. That, my friend, we will get to, whether the town is indeed happy or not. It says a new proposal now in place that represents a mutually agreed compromise between the church and the town and has the support of the mayor and the council. This proposal includes a smaller single-story temple of approximately 30,000 square feet and a steeple height of 120 feet. Notice there, this proposal includes a smaller single-story temple of approximately 30,000 square feet. That indicates that the church is acknowledging there that its original temple was 2 stories. But what they told the people of Fairview originally was that the building was a single-story structure. Melissa McKinney was handing out flyers saying that it's a single-story structure and talking about the roof height being about 45 feet or so, when in reality, the actual roof line with the mechanical level and everything was more like 65. So the church has now admitted, I guess, that they were not being fully honest in their representation of this before. The church does admit this that the plan will be presented in public hearings for consideration by Fairview Town Council. So they do say that. But the church looks forward to participating in this public process and presenting this new plan for a temple on the church's property in Fairview. That possessive language at the end, on the church's property. We own it. We want to put our stuff on it. Yeah, that's how it always reminds me of the incredibly, when I talk about this kind of rights-based sort of conception that the church seems to have. They come from this idea that they have rights and they must exercise those rights, and if they do not exercise them to their fullest, they will lose them immediately, and they will be taken away from them, and the church will be consigned to nothing. And so it's actually quite an odd move for the church to even try and compromise here. I wonder whether the bad press made them realize they probably should try and compromise. I wonder whether they've realized that they don't have a stronger case here as they do in other places, perhaps, given the controversy around the Creekwood United Methodist Church, and certainly mine and others' reading of the way things went down, that was never approved. It was sent back for approval, and that never happened. There was nothing signed off. So, yeah. But let me know your thoughts in the comments. Let's take a quick break here from me rambling to have a look through the comments and see what people are saying before we get to what the temple looks like, because I think that's what you all want to see. Okay, I'm going to show you what the temple looks like, and I want you to comment and tell me what you think. Here we are. How do I make this? There we go. That's what the new temple would look like. The old temple was a traditional sort of single spire, long-bodied thing, kind of like Preston, or what other temples are like that? Bern, London. Here I am giving you all European temples to play with. What American temples are of that design? Anyway, I don't know. This one's actually more similar to Birmingham, which we'll get to. This one looks a lot more like the Birmingham temple. But is anyone else seeing just how phallic it is? Like, I mean, really, it's bad, isn't it? People are saying, Cara is saying it looks like the Bakersfield, California design precisely. I've not seen that temple, so I'll take your word for it on that one. Someone's saying the facade kind of looks like the facade of the Alamo. Are they trying to suggest to the town of Fairview this is going to end up like the Alamo? As a Brit, I'm not too familiar with the story of the Alamo, but I'm pretty sure it didn't end well for those inside. Either way. Someone said the spire looks clunky and awkward. It doesn't fit. I'd agree. I think and the church made this big deal in that big document they put out, saying about the golden ratio and how their architects design all these temples, and these temples are all meant to look really good, etc. No, what I can't see how that looks harmonic. Anyway, if it were slightly shorter, it would be perhaps more harmonious. But I tend to agree with Leah here. And again, I will point to the Birmingham temple in a moment. I think we've got some pictures of it on the slide. There will be some pictures of it. I think that's a much better designed temple. I think it looks good, and I think it fits into the area lovely. So this live stream is very much a tale of two halves. It's the church has bullied its way into a town and then is trying to paint itself as reasonable. It's like someone threatening to mug you and then saying, well, all right, well, I'll take half the things off you. And then you going, oh, yeah, thank you for not mugging me fully. That's what it seems like to me. And I feel like a lot of the townspeople feel that way also, that I've certainly spoken to. Tower serves no practical purpose. That is true. Evil Pog. It's very true. So yeah, that's what it looks like, and it'll go up to 120. And so you can see there how the 35 feet is the predominant part, and there's a small center part. And then if you're doing like a golden ratio type thing, yeah, you would like cut that top part of the spire in half. I would think. But maybe if it is truly a phallic thing, then it can't be too short, I suppose, for the small egos of those involved. I don't know. That's about as sassy as I'm going to get tonight. I'm still miffed that the leaders of the church have not sent me back a response to my appeal, to my excommunication. So, yeah. Oh yeah, no Moroni. That's a good point, Tim Rathbone. It's a known thing actually that basically since Russell M. Nelson demoted Moroni as a symbol of the church and brought in the Christus, that they kind of aren't putting Moronis on temples too much anymore. which is a great example of something that traditionally most temples had not being essential to the temple. Steeples are very much the same. Traditionally, most temples have them. You don't need them. But again, just a reminder, this was never about the temple not having a steeple. This was about keeping it short and within the permits of the town. So I don't know what to do with this, really, to do with this design. So while you're all having a look in the comments, I want to talk about, is it more in line, but is it enough? Because I don't think it is for the town people. The current limits as they stand from memory is 68 feet. That's the tallest religious structure in Fairview, is the 68-foot tall spire on the current stake center, which is next to where this, not stake center, meeting house, which is next to where this temple will be built. And the highest walls are about 45 feet-ish, I believe, on a church just down the road. And that got approval for an aircon unit to be put in at the top that brought it up to about 45. So 45 is fine for the body of that temple that they've put together. But the spire still poses an issue, or the tower, as it's being called now, the steeple, it still poses an issue to the planning. And again, I come back to this idea that had the church not come in and threatened lawsuit, had the church come in and played nicely, had the church come in and just asked and then accepted, this compromise might actually fly. I can't speak for the people of Fairview, but it would stand a better chance of flying, understanding human psychology. There's a lot of people in that town that feel backed into a corner and now don't want a temple to be any. They do not want to give. Okay, they do not want to give the church as an institution the precedent to go above the current regulations as they stand. The church has a right to ask to go above those. They can put in a conditional use. They can apply for a conditional use permit. But it is up to the town to give them that exemption. And this current design would still require an exemption. And it seems perfectly obvious to me as an outsider that, of course, there would be resistance to an organization that is trying to get an exemption by bullying their way to that exemption, by threatening lawsuits, by swinging around their legal rights. I don't know why I'm so small. Make myself center stage. Yeah, by swinging around their legal rights, that's how they try and get the town to do something nice for them. And I don't see how that anyone ever thought that would work, other than a particularly entitled organization that likes to swing around its rights, almost as a preemptive sort of defense mechanism. So I understand from people I've spoken to that they're not happy with this design, and they will make that heard. They will talk to the mayor. They will talk to the town council. They will go to that meeting on Tuesday, and they will make that heard. You believe it? And the only question is, what does the town do now? Do they go with the compromise, or do they stand up and go, no, you can't come in, threaten to beat us into submission with lawsuit, then try and act reasonable and say, okay, we're going to compromise, and expect us to be grateful that you're compromising, when you forget who actually has who's in charge here. The town is in charge of what exemptions they give to their zoning regulations or not. That's just the way it works. The church is trying to quote RLUIPA laws and all these sorts of things that it thinks will give them precedent and give them the opportunity to sue. But I know that there are people in that town that say, well, let them sue. Let's see what happens. Let's set a precedent legally. So that's all I can really say on this at the moment, is that the residents aren't happy. Some of them think it's a compromise. Some of them just want it to go away. And if you're someone that doesn't want the fight, then yeah, you'll take what the church gives you. But the point is, the town does get to set its own rules. It does get to choose what it makes exemptions for and what it doesn't. And the church, I don't think, just personally, I don't think has a particularly compelling case to violate those height restrictions. It doesn't have a religious case, from my understanding of the religion that I grew up in, the religion that I spend my time studying, the religion that I understand in depth. There is no religious need for the temple to be that tall. There are plenty of examples of temples that aren't. So it doesn't burden the church or the church members or anyone attending the temple in any way. It's what happens inside. You only have to look to the words of the prophets to understand that. So, right. Are we ready for a sponsor? Which is totally not sponsored. Today's episode is brought to you by these Shrewsbury biscuits. Cookie Bear Shrewsbury biscuits. These are the New Zealand version of Jammy Dodgers, very kindly given to me by some Kiwi viewers. Thank you very much for those. So these are what are powering me, but I've realized I can't eat them during the show, because normally I would eat these when Peter Bleakley's talking for 5 minutes. So I can just sit back, mute my microphone, chomp away on some biscuits, keep my energy levels high. But unless you want a really awkward sort of 30 seconds of me chomping on a biscuit, the ASMR of this is lovely, isn't it? That's lovely. Then I shall have to wait until afterwards to enjoy my lovely Shrewsbury biscuits. But we are going international, folks. If you know of a Jammy Dodger equivalent, I've had the Swiss Spitzberger, and now I've had the Kiwi Shrewsbury. If you know of an international version of a Jammy Dodger, a sort of shortbready type biscuit with jam in the middle that's essentially round, then let me know. Let me know. Oh, C.A. Brown with a controversial comment here. Caffeine is better for you than all the sugar you consume. Probably. It's not that controversial, is it? Cyrus Rad Magi says, like watching paint dry this discussion. That's because it's not really a discussion. It is just me monologuing at a camera. So if you don't enjoy me as an individual, that's a weird way of phrasing that. But if you don't enjoy hearing what I have to say about things, then really, you're not going to enjoy this very much. And you are free to click that cross on your screen at any time. So Prince Wallace from Germany says, Tim, okay. Fig Newtons. Not named after Sir Isaac Newton, named after a town in Massachusetts, I believe, if I've watched Big Bang Theory enough times. Okay, right. People coming absolutely out of the woodwork to tell me about things and stuff. Anyway, that's that segment. I've rattled on about that long enough. Here's what's going on in the most important country in the world. Here's what's going on in England with temples. Members were fasting for a temple. There went out a call to members of the Birmingham stake to fast for the Birmingham temple. Since we last spoke about the Birmingham temple, it's been waiting for planning permission to be granted. And they're waiting for that so that they can demolish current structures on the site. And here we are. The stake fast for Birmingham temple. Birmingham State Presidency has invited us to an opportunity. It's an opportunity to fast this Sunday, 1st of December, as a stake for the smooth approval and commencement of the works on building the Birmingham temple. We invite everyone to join in this fast as we pray for heavenly power to assist in the house of the Lord being built as soon as possible in Birmingham. Now, they're doing this, and I don't know why, because it didn't seem unlikely that things would pass. And the reason it didn't seem unlikely that things would pass is because the church acted far more reasonably here. The design is far more reasonable to the surroundings. I think it's a much nicer design as a temple goes. It's got English vibes, gives off sort of parish church vibes, which is nice. And it just generally fits into the landscape. It's already a site for religious use. It's already a site with a church building on it. There are plenty of sort of tall trees to block it from view. And yeah, it just fits in much better. So I'm a fan of the Birmingham temple as far as temples going. And that will upset many of the hardcore Exmos in the audience who just want me to be angry at temples and not want the church to build any of them, because how dare they ever build temples? But if they want to build temples, they can build temples as long as the people around them are happy and as long as the residents don't mind. And the neighbors had some concerns, and those concerns seem to be addressed. So that was great. I was happy with that. And then on the same day that they called for a fast, prophetic, they came back and said in the Facebook group, brothers and sisters, wonderful news. As of late this afternoon, the planning application for the Birmingham Temple has been approved. It seems as though the mere mention of a special fast was enough. President Peedle has invited us to dedicate our fast this Sunday to the Birmingham Temple, but it can now be a fast of Thanksgiving. Very appropriate given that today is Thanksgiving in the States. You Americans getting your holidays into everything, honestly. And a prayer that things will go smoothly from here on. Again, they do not understand what unsmooth means. Honestly, the members of the Birmingham State, if you are clinging on to any notion that this temple did not go smoothly, then you're just searching for persecution complex at this point, or something to fortify your persecution narrative that you in some way were ever at any risk of not getting the temple. Oh no, some of the residents had concerns. Yeah? Did you see what happened in Texas? Did you see what happened in Nevada? Did you see what happened in Wyoming? That's what opposition to the church building a temple in a specific location looks like. Well-founded opposition, because the church is just trying to steamroll those towns. But yeah, you had nothing to worry about because the church actually acted reasonably here. So get out of your persecution mindset and just realize that this was never a risk. Here's what came through from Birmingham City Council to individuals that had expressed interest in this, because they reached out to let us all know. And so they were letting us know that the council had made a decision on the application using powers delegated to it from the planning committee. The application has been approved, subject to conditions, and those conditions we're not going to go through tonight, but there are some conditions. One of which I think is they put electric vehicle charging in their car park, stuff like that. And then it says that the applicant has a right to appeal if the council do refuse, i.e. if the church doesn't meet the conditions, then the council will revoke the planning application and then they can appeal. But there is no third party right of appeal, so individuals not directly involved, either the council or the church, they can't get involved and appeal. So for us peasants watching from the outside, that is it. That is the Birmingham Temple happening now. Which is it's exciting for the members in that area. Let's not forget that the church dissolved Lichfield Stake, which is in the geographical area of the Birmingham Temple, and membership shrunk there. And they did that, consolidated, just as they were getting a temple. They did it in Ireland. They closed the Limerick district and turned it all into one big Dublin stake, and then they're getting a temple. It seems like closure of the stakes in an area is the sort of harbinger of a temple. So we'll see if we get another temple near London, because they closed 4 stakes around there. I mean, I doubt we will, but at this moment, Welling Ward isn't even getting a chapel. Welling Ward, the area that it inhabits geographically, is one of the oldest units of the church, and they were promised a ward building. And interestingly, Older Castle, when that was purchased by the church for over 100 million, a central London office block, part of why they were able to do that as a charity with charitable status was because they would put a meeting house in there. And that was meant to be for Welling. I don't know whether now Whitechapel Ward are going to end up in there or someone, but it'll be worth keeping an eye on that, because if a chapel doesn't end up happening there, the question is, why are they getting to buy tax-free these massive buildings and real estate as a charity? Just because in America you can say you're a charity and then you just don't have to pay, or you can say you're a church, sorry, and then you just don't have to pay taxes. That's not how it happens over here. So we've got to play by the rules in the countries we're in, and that's a lesson the church will learn in Denmark soon enough as well, I think, if all that is going the way that we think it is. If you don't know what's going on in Denmark, it might have even recommended a video like over this side or something, but you can go to my channel and look at my coverage of the latest Danish documentary, where it looks like the church is going to lose its religious status in Denmark if it's not careful, because some lawmakers are not happy about the idea that church discipline gets in the way of the police getting involved with things. And on that note, it's only a short live stream. Thank you very much, everyone, for joining in. If you like this video, please subscribe to see more of them and hit the like button. Feel free to donate to the channel. Become a monthly donor in the description. That really helps me to keep things going. And super chats are always helpful. I'm calling for them now at the end of the live stream. Probably don't put them up. I won't have a chance to read them. But channel membership's also available. There's loads of ways to support me. You know the drill. But thank you very much, everyone, for tuning in. And I hope this update was informative as to what's going on in both Fairview and Birmingham. And it's getting into the Christmas season now, so I can wish you a Merry Christmas. It's December, and we've got lots of sort of seasonal content coming up. We've got the quiz of the year coming up at the end of the year. We'll see what teams are involved, but we'll be looking back over the year of Mormonism. So get swatting up and see if you can play along live and beat the quizzes that we'll be trying to win the quiz about what happened in Mormonism this year. And a lot happened in Mormonism this year. So tune in for that. That'll be at the end. All right. Take care, everyone. Have a great evening, and I will see you next time. Bye-bye. If I can work out how to end the stream.